Francis Ngannou, different day. Look, guys, the saga continues. I'll tell you this much. Francis is a very hard guy to be mad at. This is the kind of thing our heavyweight champion not wanting to compete against the field for any reason. Gets old Chael shouting, sore throat, I'd be shouting so much. Spit coming out, the veins coming out of my neck. It's the kind of thing that would really work me up. It's very hard on Francis, and you want to know why? He's polite. Francis has been polite. If he's in public and he's talking about something where most people have shouted in the past, he lowers his voice. He stays calm. He's been polite. I'd been contacted for a show. This was years ago at this point. And the show and the theme of the show went something along these lines, but it had to do with Chael's going to be a manager. I'm going to take one guy and I'm going to take him all the way to the top. This is like the theme. I don't want to manage. I will share with you as that conversation was going, you're trying to envelop these things and see where it's going to go. The thought had crossed my mind that one guy is going to be this guy who people aren't overly familiar with, named Francis Ngannou. Had a different haircut, had a different placement on the card. Wasn't a household name, but I remember having this thought, and I shared it with you. I came to YouTube, and I shared this really loosely, but I shared it with you, and I quickly heard from the person that's managing Francis. And it wasn't a cease and assist. It was just, hi, hello, but I exist. If you come out, you're trying to manage a guy like that, I have that job. It was one of these things, and I respected it fully. I never discussed it again until now, a number of years later, but from a very different vein. Which is, Chael Sonnen, literal statement here, could and would be willing to accomplish absolute everything that Francis wants. And that does put me into a rare category. Right? You can become a manager if you have a contact, the UFC, at Bellator, at One Chase, some of these big organizations, and you have somebody that you can talk to and you can bounce ideas and you can go back and forth. That in and of itself, without any other requirement, a bank account and funding and educations and licenses in place, that in and of itself would allow you to be a manager, and you could have success to some degree if you could go and find the clients, if you could just have those relationships. Now, if you're around for a pretty long time and you got a good stable of guys, you've actually turned this into a business, you may still never reach Dana White. And you could do just fine. You get your guys signed, you could get them opportunities, you could get them to world titles and main events. They could be pleased as punch. You may never do a deal and may never reach a Dana White. So when I insert this, I just share with you where I would be effective. Is I could take all those steps that would take a normal manager many, many years to do, and I could do it, and I could do it today. Oh, and by the way, before I even go into the meeting, I'll tell you now, Francis, I will get you everything that you've asked for. Now, this is, of course, in the public, and this is the media, and these are things that I'm aware that Francis wants. I feel as though Francis has been very open, sincere, and candid with us. I feel as though he has not been asking for something that's ridiculous, that he's kept up his sleeve, that he knows is ridiculous and doesn't want us to know about. I don't think that. Just my sense, but I don't think that. And therefore, I come to you with the claim I'll get it all done. But before I do it, I have to have one thing in return. I have to have it or the deal's off. Which is that I have the power to give them, I'm going to take all these things for you, but I have to have the power to leave that room with one thing. Which is they know in an absolute manner and without question that 3 times a year for the duration of this deal, they can do as little as send a text message to me that tells me nothing more than a date and an opponent. And I mean nothing. They don't have to even tell us where it's at. We will know the rules. We'll look online and find out where the thing's at. We understand what the commission wants. We understand what the weight class is. We don't have to have a discussion whatsoever of any kind. It doesn't even have to be so much as a phone call. A text will do telling us the opponent and the date. And 3 times a year, on time, every time, for the duration of this deal, you never have to do anything with us again. There will be no talk. There will be no back and forth. I don't care if you're playing the Apex or you're playing Wembley. It will not matter to us. Whatever you do and however that side of it goes, you can 100% count on us to do our side of it. I have to have that power to take to them. And in exchange, everything that you want, I'll bring it to you. I have to have that, though. And I'm not sure that has been given to anybody. I'm not sure that within this discussion, the part about what I'm going to do for you is being discussed. I'm going to fight. Okay, great. I'm going to make weight. Okay, great. I'm going to follow the unified rules or deal with the consequences if I don't. Okay, great. I mean, all of these things are good. I'm going to resist some media, but that's because I'm focused on the match and I really just don't want to do it. Okay, that's a headache, but I deal with it every day. 3 times a year without argument or discussion, which is what 3 times a year. Can I count on you to, can I tell you nothing else than that? I don't know where the venue is going to be. At least I don't know right now. I don't have them that far booked out. I certainly don't know who the opponent is. I don't know who's going to be the number 1 contender. I don't even know what the landscape will be when this comes around. I don't know if it's going to be a massive match or it's going to be a little bit dull because the industry goes that way too. I don't know any of those things right now. I know I'm going to do my absolute best. I know it's going to be as big as it can be. But if it's bigger than either one of us ever imagines, are you going to have a problem with the success? Are you going to try to stop it and or think we need to have a discussion about it? It's a very relevant point. I got to know it right now. I'll sign this whole thing on your word. You can sue me and win. I can do nothing to you. But I'll make the deal anyway. If you give me your word 3 times a year for the duration of this deal, can we, by way of talking now, have an agreement that we don't need to talk then, and we don't need to talk again, and we don't need to talk about it? I will pick the opponent, and I will tell you the date 3 times a year, yes or no. And I'm not sure that power or that arrangement or that expression has ever been given. You got a guy that's being a real gentleman, and I don't know if it's a moving target. I have felt like it has been, but I'm just an observer on the outside. I have Francis' number. I've never called and asked him. He'd probably tell me. I prefer to speculate. Eric Nick said, great guy. Said, hey, you ever talk about Francis, reach right out to me. I'll make sure you have accurate information. He's a great guy, and I really appreciate it. I just prefer to speculate. I would definitely do that for Coach Eric. Definitely. But I prefer. I have more fun sitting back and trying to observe it. And I think my observations are very fair. When I tell you that Francis is polite, that's true. And when I tell you that we've got to have grace with Francis, it's not just about a contract. He also has a knee injury. These things work side by side. Very relevant to the Francis story. Like, as he's working out the dotting of the I's and the crossing of the T's, he's doing it simultaneously with an injury or he couldn't be competing anyway. It's relevant. He's not holding himself up. He's not holding anything up. He's doing 2 things at the same time. One of them is taking precedence in the media, giving the appearance that it's all about a contract. He's nursing a knee. But at one point, I felt as though it was told to me, the viewer, that there just needed to be what's called a carve-out. Carve out that I can go and do an event. I got to call it an event with Tyson Fury. I have to call it an event because those guys weren't going to box. I mean, they were clear to tell they were going to make up some rules. They were going to go do something in a boxing ring. All right. But a carve out for that. And for that only, but that's specifically. I think that has changed. I don't think that it has to be Tyson. It has to be anybody. It has to be boxing. I think that it got a little bit tough and a little bit loose. And it's important. It's really hard to do. If you're going to do a carve-out, you got to be specific within your terms. It's a big deal if I do a carve-out that you're going to go box Tyson, but then I go find out you guys aren't boxing. Well, who gets to say? Well, the commission that oversees it. Is there a commission overseeing it, and did it fall under this jurisdiction of boxing? If it does, that's what your clause says. If you're going in and doing something different, I feel as though we probably should have a conversation, but you don't feel that way. And I'm not looking to have a fight with you down the road. So I'm just not going to agree to it right now. And then was it a money play? Was there something with that also came up? All fair things to discuss. We won't have a goalpost. Keeps on moving. It makes for a tough spot. And if we do this, if I am motivated, and I am, to have it done, but can I have a confidence that it really is done? It's not done for the next one. It's not what the contract says. It says 3 a year, and we got an X fight deal. So 3 times a year over the duration. But I understand that we don't have anything to discuss. Can I rely? Can I have a confidence? Is that what we're all agreeing to? It's an important detail. It's one that I don't have. But as an outside observer, I think it's the part that's left out. And I don't know what the answer to it is. I don't know that it's as simple as a yes. If the answer is no, and we're going to talk, and we're talk on time every time, and I'm going to point the gun at you as many times as I can. If that's the answer, it's a fair answer, whether you like it or not, as long as it's said ahead of time. And I think that somewhere within that description, I'm very close to identifying what is holding up this agreement.